And here we go. I think we're live. Hey, yes we are. Cool. Hey, it's me. All right. Sorry, I was just placing an order on Etsy to buy things that I can't talk about quite yet. But we'll figure that out later. Hey, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. For those of you who have showed up for Haven's Paint and Chat, we're going to be continuing to paint this bad boy. The Fat Dragon Games Deathwalker that I've been working on last stream. I'm going to finish it off this time. Big undead siege engine that they brought out, and drinking Steamjack from Indiana. Partially because I miss Hare, and that's where I get that soda usually. And today we're also going to be talking about how I do things homebrew, because I got thinking about it, and really, if I want to talk about something that I enjoy the most, it's going to be that. It's going to be the fact that I really enjoy creating and homebrewing everything. So we're going to start off, though. I'm going to throw more brown. I'm going to start actually on the browns on this guy, and then possibly some of the metals and stuff. So the yeah, I already have some brown paint. I'd already got things a little prepped up a little bit because I was already painting other stuff. But before we go any further, I'm gonna ask to see if the Brennans are actually on, because they actually had a question left over from the very end of last stream, and I want to make sure I answer that for them.
I don't see either one of their names on there yet.
Okay, you don't see either one. Well, if they are listening, wave, do something, and say something. I'm going to switch this over here because I'm not left-handed. That's right. I put the paints thing under my face so that you guys really can't see it. Start throwing some brown on this guy while we're waiting. But yeah, no, I'm going to talk about the thing that I love the most, and it's homebrewing everything. It's going to be the fact that I grew up creating campaigns from whole. I think I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I never played canned campaigns brought out by Dungeons and Dragons, or at least if they were thrown in as part of a larger homebrew game that my parents would run, or my brothers and I would run. And we only ever had like the three main books. We had, the Dungeon Master's Guide, we had the Player's Handbook, and we'd have a monster manual. That was it. That's how we played 2nd edition D&D for years, and then we created everything else that we needed. Deities and Demigods. I will say that much. We lived on Deities and Demigods by throwing a whole bunch of them in there. But yeah, no, we created everything that we could. Steamjack. That's what I'm answering. Because I like cream soda.
I just answered. Send the link from the site.
Yep. We actually had a case of Root Jack and Steamjack shipped to the house a while back. And it's been sitting there waiting for a good reason for us to drink it. And I think on my streams is a good reason to drink it while I proceed to miss Hare.
As long as I get at least one more bottle, I'm good.
There is still like 3 more bottles in there. And then I think once we get down to like 1 or 2 bottles left, we should probably just place another order.
If they have it available.
If they have it available. Or I'm also hoping they actually start carrying it at some of our local game stores. And then I will drive to my friendly local game store and pick up Root Jack. Anyway. Yeah, homebrew stuff. Until the Brennans get on, and then we'll talk about the part that I left them hanging. Or that might be the end all, is like, tune in to find out what the random comment I threw out last stream that boggled some of my friends about my past. Alright, so homebrew. That's how I did it. I've always created it. I've always found it to be a more immersive way. If you hear that, that's my dog coming down the stairs very loudly. Probably covered in snow. In fact, to the point when I finally actually started going to Gen Con and a few other conventions, I was shocked. Well, I mean, not shocked, but I was like, wait, you guys don't homebrew your campaigns? I mean, I understand the lore and everything that was written, and everybody loving some of those canned campaigns, but to me, those canned campaigns were supposed to be a primer, something to get you started, something for you to read and go, this is how somebody else has done it. Now make it your own. And the fact that people would run them just the way they were written and then like barely come out of their shell and barely create anything for it, just boggled me. And I remember playing in some of those playing in those games. So let me rephrase. When I say that I never do that, I mean as a DM. I've played in canned campaigns and then was surprised to find out that other people had played in the similar campaign. But it was always in one-shots. It was always in games at conventions or stuff like that where, you know, everybody got together and it was that shared lore that everybody knew, supposedly. And I didn't care because really, unfortunately, with a one-shot, that shared lore really meant squat for what we're doing. That, you know, it didn't matter. We were there to fight the dragon or clear out the goblins or do whatever else was needed to be done in this one-shot little 4 or 5 hour campaign that we were playing. So longer versions, longer campaigns, it was always done homebrew. It was always created from the top of your head, and it always made it more immersive, which is why when I hear people complain about how, you know, they don't see a reason for backstories, or the DM doesn't use their backstory, or the fact that, like, they don't really, you know, or a DM complaining about the fact that the players aren't, you know, feeling connected to the campaign in any fashion. Like, that's my first question, is like, well, what have you done? What have you done to make their character part of the world? What have you done to tie them into this world? Where's the hook? Where's the... I mean, we all know the players are there because they want to play the game. But what happened to making the character want to be there? You know? Players want to play the game, but what's the character's function? What's the character, you know, hook, I guess, again, is the term that's the best one. Why is the character going to run on this adventure? Why are they here? What's their motivation to be here? Let's use the terms from, you know, acting and stuff. What's the motivation? What's the motivation of the character? If they don't have a motivation to be part of your campaign, then yeah, sometimes the player is going to sit there and go, I don't need to go hunt a dragon. That sounds dangerous. What's the cook? So anyway, I think I'm flabbergasting myself at this point, or floundering myself. Here's what I would say though: homebrewing a campaign. This is how I do it. The first thing that I do when I come up with the fact that I'm going to run a campaign for some friends of mine is I actually come up with the BBEG, the big bad evil guy, dude, girl, whatever, the big guy at the end. I come up with what the bad guy is, and or what are they trying to do? Like, I might even have a what they're trying to do before I actually figure out who the villain is. In my current campaign with the Wandering Few, that's how that happened. I came up with what they were trying to do first, and then made a villain to fit that role to do what I wanted them to do. So that's where I always start, and then I work backwards. I, you know, figure out what the big climax is going to be. What is the villain trying to do? Create the villain, or create a villain and then figure out what they're doing, and then work my way backwards, creating plot points and story points for them to achieve, and or for the party to thwart, and then work my way backwards. I don't necessarily think, I don't know if anybody else does it, but this is the way I do it. Okay, so this is the way that I was I don't want to say taught, but this is the way that I was shown that this is how you create an immersive game for your players from the get-go. And that's a bit. I have a general idea of what it's going to be, because the problem is that you can't really write an ending until you know how you got there, but you at least need to know where you're going, because if you don't know where you're going, then you're just, I feel like sometimes when somebody homebrews a campaign, they're floundering, they're going all over the place because they don't have a goal. They don't have the destination set yet.
They don't have that distinctive path.
Right, they don't have a path set. So I come up with that path first, and then go through and figure out how we're going to get there, right? Mm-hmm. So let's just, I'm going to come up with an example, unless there's somebody who's watching who wants to has an example for a big bad guy or a big evil dude. Let's see, what's a very common one? Okay, power. Let's just say they want to take over. They want to take over what? You know what? I'm gonna make my daughter happy. A coup. Let's say they want to have a coup. They're planning a coup, and they're trying to usurp the current reigning government, whatever that may be. Okay, cool. Well, now I know I got to come up with a government. Like, what kingdom are they trying to overtake? What government are they trying to overthrow or take control of? So let's start with that. And then I come up with the kingdom. So, okay, we're already working backwards. All right, so now I need a kingdom, I need a place. Or if you've already created the world, you already know the kingdom, and you just choose one. So they're going to try and take over. They're throwing a coup. All right, cool. We know what the bad guy's doing. What would fit? What makes it? What would be a good villain to throw a coup and try and take over a kingdom? But let's make it somebody who's not the normal one. Because I'm sorry, the rich guy trying to take more power is overplayed. Let's see who would be. Let's make it a revenge story. Revenge story is always cool. Let's give him a reason for doing it as revenge. He is. Oh, I broke a piece off. Uh-oh. I lost a piece. All right, well, make sure I put that back on later. You know what? Let's do this. That it is the. We'll say it's going to be the previous. The previous ruler. That was the. Let's call him an emperor or a king. Their family was usurped. They were thrown out of power, and now it is being run more like a democracy. Like there's a council. Like, okay, so let's go to a council of 3, and they're going to try and take back their family's, legacy, and reinstitute themselves as the ruler, and they're going to rebuild a following as they do it to take over this kingdom. Okay, we have the big bad guy. We have what they're doing. Okay. Well, let's figure out a few things that they would need to do to be able to do this. So, and make them like some kind of encounter, whether it be a social encounter, whether it be a combat encounter, or a skill challenge, something. There's a few things that needs to happen. I like working in groups of 3 when I write my campaigns, and I don't know why I've done that, but I just guess I'm stuck on the idea of a trilogy. So I usually end up working out in having 3s. So I pick 2 or 3 other spots. Oh, I just spilled that. That was so good, Alan. Look at that. We just spilled all the black wash I created earlier. Good thing I have this paper towel just already sitting here waiting for me to use. See, I make mistakes. I am not a professional. I'm a professional idiot. Just ask Rick Rock. So I choose then, if we're working in 3s, there'll be 3 high points, or, we have the main battle at the end would be 1, and then 2 other mid-climax, mid-areas that I would choose as other spots that he needs to do. What are things that the big climactic points that would be the ends of these parts, this 3-part trilogy? Let's see, what would they need for a coup? Well, I'm guessing first off, if I was going to do a coup, we would do trying to get a power base and recruiting people, specifically like high-powered people. You know what? Let's make this an interdimensional thing. Let's say that this guy is trying to make... He's going to make a deal with somebody. Let's make him a warlock, all right? Let's give him a class. Let's make him a warlock, and he's trying to actually do something for his pack to get his, let's say, a devil or some divine... Oh, let's make it an old one just for kicks, right? Bring a little Cthulhu into this. And he has promised to bring an X number of minions on a specific date, and the party's going to find this out. That'll be the first one. And if he doesn't succeed at that, then that'll put him back in his plan. So that'll be the first thing they get to try and stop. Will be, a major recruitment draw of sacrificial lambs. Well, and then let's see. So then that doesn't work. So of course the old ones are going to demand more. Now they want a bigger sacrifice. He's going to have to do something and bring them something that they're missing. Maybe he's got to open up a gate to help bring the old ones back or something. That'd be the second part, the climax of the second part. And then after that, we'll then had another one, and then that'll be the final battle to stop him from taking over the kingdom. There you go. There's your 3 parts. Now I'm talking in generalities. I'm talking bigness. And if you actually go look at my campaigns, I have them totally. It's more like idea bubbles, like in lines. Currently in a spreadsheet because I'm still looking for a better like plot tracking visual software that's more like a giant whiteboard to be able to use for this kind of thing. But so there's our three main battles, or our three main encounters that's going to happen that the heroes are going to try and stop. And I stop there. I don't plan out anymore because I just want to have the idea going. After we get that set, now I talk to the players. Find out their characters, find out what backstories they want to run, find out what kind of character they want to be, and then work out with the player how we're going to incorporate that character into this world. You know, what is that character's motivation? Are they an orphan looking for or maybe not an orphan, maybe they're just an abandoned child that are always looking for their family, that was left on the thieves guild's doorstep, and they took them in as an urchin and trained them in Star-Lord style and threatened to eat them all the time? Or were they maybe they were a priest that was raised, or they were always done as a paladin, raised to always look for good. Whatever it is, figure out the motivation of the character, figure out the backstory of the character, then take that information and figure out where you can incorporate that into your plot, into this grand campaign, to make that player or make that character have a reason to stop this emperor, this previous family emperor, from trying to take back the throne. Anybody got a character concept? Like, if you get a character concept and you're watching this, like, totally throw it in the chat. I don't care. Give me your backstory in like two or three sentences, and we'll try and connect your character into this plot of a coup to take back an emperor. I'm going to say this again, by the way. This model would be so much easier to paint if I hadn't assembled it. I'm so kicking myself for being impatient and wanting to see this thing put together that it is now causing me all kinds of grief to paint it. It's a good thing that my players are probably never going to look at this undercarriage, because I don't know how well the paint job's going to be for this underside.
Oh, now we're going to have to pick on it.
Right. They're going to totally pick it apart.
We got it. I mean, come on, you just kicked it out.
Because I'm pretty sure I'm going to have spots that I miss in this undercarriage.
It's okay. You were talking character sheets and stuff, and I remembered, hey, we leveled up last session. I should, change some stuff on my sheet.
And then I realized I haven't actually added it yet. But if you want to manually level yourself up to the next level, it's fine. I'll finish. Okay.
Well, I
didn't add the XP yet, but do it, and that's fine.
You can tweak it anyway.
Yeah.
But remember, I was taking a...
You're going to take a level in Druid.
Yeah.
Because her backstory for this thief has led her down the path of Druidic fun.
Yes.
Alright, well, I don't think anybody's giving me their backstory.
Oh, here we go.
Okay. Oh.
Sole survivor of an outlier town to the kingdom, surrounded by voices and images of those they knew from the town. Seeks revenge against the kingdom that allowed for this destruction to happen.
Wow. So you gave me Angie's backstory. All we just need to add is a cursed sword. Okay. So we have lone survivor, outlier, destroy voices and images
of those that they previously knew.
Okay.
Seek revenge for allowing the destruction to happen.
All right. Awesome. So the first thing, though, is that I would actually say is that I would not bring up... I would tie this story into the whole thing by figuring out who or what destroyed the city. Was it like in this case, the first thing that pops into my head would be like a specific military unit. Let's say a military unit that actually still wants the emperor back. Let's call it like one of the units, like an elite unit from the back in the Empire, is still roaming the lands as a mercenary squad at this point, but basically just rummaging and pillaging and being generally bad people, is the one that destroyed it, and of course in the name of the previous emperor. that's what I would come up with, is that, with the player, we come up with this garrison that did the damage and did, destroyed their village.
We have a Brennan.
We have a Brennan!
We just got a Heyo.
Well, now they got to wait till the end to find out the sewer story then. So, but no, I would totally start off with the fact with the player come up with a garrison or some military unit that did the ransacking that killed everybody in their village. I would totally do that, and then find a way to incorporate that unit at some point for like a revenge arc for them. Maybe that unit is the one trying to secure all of the sacrifices to the old ones in the first part. That would be a great way. Maybe that unit is the ones actually protecting the would-be emperor. And when you go after them, when he tries to summon, maybe they're the ones protecting the portal that they're trying to open up for the old ones. That's how I would then tie that in. Not tell the player that part. Like, tell the player the whole unit thing and everything, and come up with a name and have so that the player can know it on site. Like when you drop it, that the Hassan murdering guard or whatever just are the ones protecting the portal. He'll know, and that player, or they'll know. The player will immediately go, oh, "You killed my family. Prepare to die." And there you go. We've got them. We've got that player's now hooked into it. That player wants to keep playing. That player wants their character involved, and is not going to be sitting there on the sidelines when you throw that hook out, because it's like, no, I need to kill those people. They killed my entire village. They killed my family. They killed everybody I know. But so that's how I tie them into the world, tie them into the plot line, right? So there you go. And then, then on top of that, find out so this emperor who these people worshipped and these people were serving is now trying to come back into power. Oh, heck no, we're going to go through and stop them. So that's the off the top of my head how I would tie that kind of backstory into this world where we're trying to throw a coup to just having a coup to disrupt democracy and go and reassert an emperor. Gee, does that sound like anybody's current situation in the world? Sorry. Maybe that's why my brain went there. But anyway, that's how I would tie them in. So there you go. You find out what the player hook is, what the character is going to be doing, and then you tie it in. I think I've just beat that horse to death. Anybody got another character? Throw another character backstory at me. Throw another 3-line character backstory at me. We'll find another way of hooking that character into this emperor coup, democracy coup thing, and we'll see what we can come up with. This helps my creative juices, by the way. As a DM, as an improv actor, this is what I live for. Throw out those concepts, throw out that stuff, and then let's find a way to brainstorm this into the same session or figure it out. And I live for this stuff. I do. I really do. I love improv. I love the creative juices. I mean, yeah. While we wait for somebody else to throw a character concept at me, another thing, by the way, so I've talked about how we set everything up. That's great. Here's the hard part. From here on out, I basically lay out this huge skeleton, this very bare bones concepts of how I want this of what's going to happen in this campaign. And then after every session, I sit down and think about how the actions of my players in that last 4 hours is going to change what's currently going on in the world. Time is still passing. As the adventurers and the heroes are doing their thing and trying to save the world or stopping this action or that action, the BBEG is still doing the same thing, man. The bad guys out there moving and working and networking and forming new plans or changing plans and adapting. So you've got to keep writing it up. So I've actually had campaigns where I had that whole skeleton thing, right? But because of the players' actions and what they did, I ended up adapting and changing how the big bad guy was going to end or how he was going about what he was doing to adapt to what it was. And that, to me, is what makes playing a tabletop role-playing game different than sitting down and playing a video game where the ending's always the same. No matter what you do, you can fight the same bad guys, you can try different techniques to fight and kill them, but the storyline's going to stay the same. The bad guy's going to still do the same thing. And that's how I feel like canned campaigns end up being, is that it doesn't matter what you do and how you handle it. The bad guy is going to do the same thing. The Curse of Strahd's always going to end the same way. The Tyranny of Dragons is always going to end with Tiamat coming back. No matter what you do, you can't have the climactic end without Tiamat coming back. Even if you do everything right. So, for me, as a homebrew, I can make those changes on the fly. Did I see another character? Another character. Okay.
Actually, we have two.
Okay.
So, the first one.
First one.
A goblin pretending to be a halfling, hiding from both exile from their tribe and judgment from the humans, has goals to learn how to make the biggest booms in life.
Okay, we got a goblin alchemist who's hiding as a halfling. Okay.
And is
I love this idea.
From being exiled from everything. Basically.
Okay. I like this idea. I think this would be a great character to play. I'd love to see how this would actually interact. But okay, so how would I tie this guy in? Okay. Goblin, he's been exiled from his tribe. As funny as it sounds, I love taking exiles and stuff like that and forcing them to face the reason they were exiled. Because I feel like it makes the players have to justify it almost. And I don't mean that as a bad thing. Like, I just want to see it play out. I want to see, like, okay, so you were exiled because, I don't know, let's say this goblin, he was exiled because big booms, right? You said big booms? Okay, cool. He blew up and killed some of the goblins during a festival of something because he was playing around with explosives. He was playing around with the fireworks and stuff, right? So he got exiled from the tribe because he had blown up some people playing with being a pyro, okay? Because that could happen.
Not any people we know.
Yeah, no, that would not, no. But then I'm going to make this goblin tribe, right? Okay. Let's see. My first gut would be to see about making the goblin tribe be the one goblins that know how to stop the gates being open to bring in the old ones. Like, they were some of the original guardians of the gates of the old ones because they used to worship the old ones, so they know the rituals and then they turned on them. Let's make them the original gatekeepers. So to stop it from happening, he's got to go back to his own village and sneak in, and the party now has to figure out exactly how to stop the old ones from coming back through these goblins, and it's his own village. Ah, crap. Of all the villages in all the world, it had to be this one, kind of thing. And then the player gets to play around with it. Maybe that doesn't necessarily make them tied to the campaign, but it definitely makes for some fun role-playing. But that's how I tie the character into the world. Like, there's the goblin tribe. And then that makes the goblins be good guys, too. Because how often do goblins get to be good guys? Usually they're always the bad guys.
True.
So I love... that's the off-the-cuff. That's how I'd incorporated a halfling alchemist who blew too many things up.
Okay. Bad quote joke.
Okay.
I like big booms, and I cannot lie. You other goblins can't deny.
I love it.
I'll give you one guess on which friend posted that.
I'm gonna say it was Jen the Gamer, just because I'm gonna pick on her if she ever watches this.
One.
Okay.
This one's just being a jerk.
Okay.
Sentient slice of toast, signs a hellish pack, seeks the greatest butter known to man, fears fire.
Somebody went to one of the random character generators, I think. All right, now I'm gonna let you know. You're talking to the individual that actually had a campaign, a one-shot, where they actually brought to me and said they wanted to be a sentient slice or sentient loaf of bread being carried by a mage hand. So I told him, write up any character you want. I don't care about the class. And then we're going to have you be cursed as a slice of loaf. And your cantrip is the mage hand. And you're just constantly casting it all the time to keep moving yourself around. Unless one of your party members is carrying you. However, as soon as the sentient slice of loaf starts to talk. And I told him to think of this Muppet style. You might get some weird looks from the villagers and anybody else you guys are interacting with. Have fun. And we ran, and I was fully prepared to run with this. And as it turns out, though, they ended up actually saying they'd rather actually be in a sentient knife. And so we ran with that instead. So we got, what was it then? A sentient loaf? No, a sentient...
Slice of bread.
A sentient slice of bread.
That's looking for butter and is afraid to fire. Afraid of fire. Seeking the greatest butter known to man and fears fire.
Okay.
And go.
So, tying in a sentient loaf of bread who's looking for butter. Okay. This is the part where I'd actually say, if to be brutally honest, I would go with the famed best butter in the land was mixed and made by maidens of the previous empire that had fallen, taking their recipes with them, finding out that the empire is now trying to come back, has resurfaced this sentient slice of toast, and realized that maybe they can finally find that recipe for the perfect butter. So in a way, they kind of want to find the emperor, or the emperor's new groove, or shall we say, or find this person who wants to be the emperor, or at least find out if they have the kitchen staff's contacts, so they can track down the milkmaid who is known to make the golden butter. Yeah, that's how I do that. Yeah, that makes sense, I think. It's not great, but you take what you're working with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sentient loaf of bread. I just hope it's a spellcaster, because otherwise you're just going to end up beating people with a baguette, okay? That's what that ends up being. Alright, so that's how you tie it in. So that's where I feel that, again, when you have these canned campaigns that the DM doesn't bother to focus on the players and is more focused on the campaign and memorizing the book, they miss out on getting the character hooks and getting the characters involved in the world. When I was running Tyranny of Dragons, that I felt was my hardest part. I spent so much time making the story fit my characters that we ended up spending so much time on this backstory and stuff that I created so that their stories fit the world. I at that point I was creating it all anyway. And the parts that people loved were the parts that I was creating, and not the parts that I was feeling like I was forced back into the curve of the story plotline as what the book had laid out. Some of the best fun we had was actually in the Mirror of the Dead Men, I feel, and I completely created the whole thing from the top of my head, and then tried to make it fit in a pre-established world. And that's where I was like, you know what, why am I forcing myself to play in this sandbox when I can just create a new sandbox? And I really feel like there was some other issues going on in that campaign, but I know from a DM standpoint that that's one of the things that really was driving me crazy. And it was like, especially when my homebrew world started back up again, and I was like, I'm having so much more fun with this world that I created for my players. I mean, yes, grantedly the whole thing is my creation, but with all the player feedback, you know, it was great. And I reminisce, and I feel bad because there's parts of that campaign for the Tyranny of Dragons that I was running for those players that we never got to, because I had planned out, you know, these certain parts of character development or character backstory popping up at certain points in the campaign, and we just never got to it. We never got to see Nahis, our half-ogre barbarian, have to figure out what she was going to do when her grandmother shows up and says that all of the women of the tribe have stood up and are taking back the tribe from the men because they've realized that they're freaking morons, and that her dad, who tried to hunt her down and killed her foster parents in the process, has died, and the tribe is in chaos, and to help bring the tribe back into session, she wants Nihis to come back to the tribe. I was hoping to then tie this in, that the orc tribes were then going to help join in the fight against Tiamat, or against the forces of Tiamat, so that we would have actually had like the forces of orcs joining in. Let's make orcs good guys, you know? It would have been epic. I thought it was going to be great, but I was putting that specifically when they were doing some of the stuff with back in Waters Deep at the end of the first book, basically. I was really bummed by that, actually.
So you actually have 2 questions.
Okay, shoot.
First one, would you say a canned adventure is more suited for a murder hobo roll and loot kind of party?
Certain ones, yes. I'm gonna eat my own shorts here and go back to the fact that I do remember one campaign my mom loved to run back in the day, which was Trouble with Troglobites, and that is a perfect murder hobo run in, kill a bunch of troglobites, grab the loot, and get out. Perfectly fine. Love that kind of stuff. The one-page DM makes some great mini little campaigns that are great for murder hobos, where you don't need a lot of plot. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm perfectly fine with a murder hobo Diablo-esque, loot and shoot, or but that's not my favorite type of game. I'll play those. I'll do them occasionally for people, but it's not my type. I love a more engrossing campaign. But yeah, I do feel that some campaigns where you don't have to do as much thought and process into it would fit better for a quick loot and grab, if that's what everybody wants. Mm-hmm. And I guess that goes back to like the players parts of it too. Like, if that's what the players and the DM all want to do it. I'm not saying that is not a good idea. I just want everybody on the same page and make sure it's the type of game everybody wants to run. But yeah, no, canned campaigns are definitely, I feel, better for that kind of gameplay, which is probably why it works best for adventure quest, adventure something. Whatever Wizards tried to bring out to turn D&D into a tournament.
Another one is, as far as homebrew goes, how do you tackle homebrew classes? I love a bunch of the classes from 3.5, but I haven't figured out a good way to bring them into 5e.
Okay. That's a whole nother ball of wax. I will say this much. I love doing that, but the question is always balance. Yeah. But the first thing I would do is the first thing I would do is hit up DM's Guild and or Drive Through RPG and see if somebody's already done it. See if somebody's already created a conversion for that class into 5e. If they haven't, I'd then start hitting up Reddit and some of the other places, and again, see if somebody else has already tried it, or there's been a thread or a conversation about it at first.
And that's actually one of the comments was actually from Brennan. Was I always find homebrew classes to be extra tricky, as they can quickly become out of balance with the more measured classes that have been play tested rigorously.
So, however, I'm not beyond this. I'm all for it. But what I would also tell the player, and I would make sure the whole party knows that this class here is going to be a test run. Yeah. And that tweaks may be made on the fly, maybe not on the fly, but tweaks to the class as written will be done as the campaign progresses in the attempt to keep everything balanced. Mm-hmm. If you walk into the first few encounters and your homebrew 3.5 class is just not hitting, not doing anything, doesn't feel like he's being a good support member, or is not succeeding, sit down, figure out what you need to do, maybe up some dice here and there, maybe come up with some other benefits and stuff, and make him stronger. Same goes the other direction. If your homebrew dude is suddenly the only one killing everything and the rest of the party is sitting there playing, feels like they're just playing
if we're playing support to your tank.
Yeah, Quidditch, while this one class does all the work, maybe it's time to nerf them a little bit. But so as long as everybody knows that that's the constant thing, I mean that's where you play test it and just keep play testing it out, and making changes as necessary. I will say that while it's not necessarily the same thing, I currently actually in the Wandering Few, I am completely creating from scratch the what do they call it for a paladin? The oath. The oath for our paladin. So Angie, for those of you who are joining us, Angie is our fighter, who after defeating the entity that had taken over the sword that she found in the middle of her village, stabbed through the heart of the blacksmith, taking said blade and that had then told her that it's going to get revenge for her, once they actually had defeated the entity that had taken that blade over, she was then told that she now actually could become a champion for Saloon, the moon goddess. And so I am completely coming up with an oath for the paladin based around the moon. I did exactly what I just said. I did a bunch of searching, I found a couple of spots on Reddit where people had talked about possibly doing things with the moon and with Saloon. I took what I liked, I threw away what I didn't, I made some other changes, I gave it a great name. Guess what the paladins of the moon are called? They're called lunatics. And I then and started giving her some abilities. I have told the player of Angie that this is what I'm doing, and we're going to run with it this way. And if I also stole from Matt Mercer, and actually the sword is actually an intelligent weapon that is leveling with her, so it is growing. It is a vestige, yeah. So I did exactly what I just said. I searched around, and then I took what I liked about what other people had come up with and other suggestions, and then created my own oath for these paladins of the moon.
You got a thanks for the in-depth analysis and pun.
You're welcome. But there you go. I think I'll take that as also like all right, you've killed this horse, you've beaten it to a death. But yeah, and never be afraid to create it. Just be upfront with your players too. Like out of game, side, I will tell the players, like, all right, this weapon that I just gave you, totally just homebrewed this thing up, so it might change as we go, because I might have made it too powerful. I'm all for creating homebrew weapons too, and magical weapons, because the same thing, like you do, and again, they might change. I might have to tweak them a little bit. Because they could be too powerful, Although the nice thing is that if a weapon is too powerful, as the DM, you can always up the bad guys too.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever had a player get salty after you nerfed their OP homebrew class?
Yeah, I have. But it wasn't the prime situation as I would have liked it, because it was their class that they had created, and I told them up front I felt it was too OP to begin with, and so they kind of knew I already thought it was too much to begin with, but I said, all right. They insisted, no, it's balanced, we're fine, I've played this before, it'll be fine. And I went, okay. And it wasn't. It was way overpowered. It gave way too many benefits way too quickly. And I ended up going like, where did you find this? And it turns out it was totally his own creation, which I don't mind. Like, that's fine. And I was like, nope, you're going to have to, knock this down a little bit, because you are, and it was a warlock, by the way, just in case anybody cares. And it was, or a warlock style, I should say. Actually, let me back that up. It was warlocks before we had warlocks, to be honest, because this is 2E, way back. Remember, I'm old. So, but yeah, it was way too powerful. Warned him of it up front. He got salty about it. He ended up actually leaving, but he really wasn't the type of player that actually, I think, really was enjoying my games, other than the fact that it was a game. This is before I learned a lot of lessons about, interviewing players and making sure they actually want to play the game that I want to run. and that's where I kind of learned that to do that kind of research ahead of time, was from that kind of situation. And that was actually in my teens is when that happened. But
people are gonna get salty if they can't get their way at times.
yeah, it was kind of like, I really do feel like he was just really wanted to be the best at everything, and when he couldn't be, he got angry. But you're not always going to be the best at everything. You're going to have to. Why is this not working? Oh, you know what? I'm hitting over there. That's what's happening. There it goes. So I had to move my battering ram so I could finish painting underneath. I think this guy's coming together pretty spiffy.
I don't want to fight it, but I like it.
Oh, yeah. No, you guys are really not going to like this guy. I'm going to grab a smaller brush now and go after some of the ropes. I am just doing this all in just a base brown. At this point, I'm just trying to get everything the same color, the colors I want, the base colors, and then I'm going to plan on going through and picking everything out more detail, doing some dry brushing over everything, as well as going through and putting some more dry brushing and washing over everything, just to bring out all the detail, because this is supposed to be quick and dirty.
There's a question of why didn't he just play a bard then, if that's the type of character he was really trying to play.
So bards weren't around in 2e, or at least not in the originally. When did bards come out? Because I don't actually have a
I don't know.
a thesaurus. Remember, I missed a really big chunk of D&D. Like, I went from, 2.5, I picked up 3.5 and never really played it because nobody at that time in my life was playing. And then jumped back into 5e. So, back in the 90s, the early 90s, we didn't have bards. Hell, I don't even think we had rangers yet. I remember really only playing 5 classes, and that was it. And it was barbarians weren't even a thing back then. It was, fighter, cleric. Back when clerics could only use blunted weapons. Fighters, clerics, wizards, and rogues. That was it.
So there was a question of, how do you go about interviewing possible players?
Oh, I love this one. So, before, it literally was that. I totally would just sit down with somebody and all right, what kind of play do you do? And ask them what the games they played and what did they like about those games and what they didn't like about them. We're now in a point in our technology wise where I made a Google Doc, and I would be more than happy to share that Google Doc. Unless you have the link somewhere, hon. I think I've shared it to you once a while ago, but I will grab it in just a moment and throw it in chat. But no, I made a Google Doc that is literally all the questions I would normally ask or want asked of somebody when it comes to playing a game. And there are no wrong answers, by the way, because again, a hack and slash, dungeon delve, loot and shoot is no more is just as much D&D as somebody who does all role playing with no dice. So, but for me, it's to make sure that the game that I am going to run will fit the player just as much as my game style will fit their expectation as well. So yeah, I now use a Google Doc to do that, and then I collect all the submissions. And
it also helps if you have a specific campaign that you really want to try to run. You can go through all those applications that you have, and decide, okay, who do you think is going to be a good fit, and then making sure we have a good mix of not just player personalities, but character personalities as well.
Right, because one of the questions on that list is, what kind of character do you want to play?
Yeah.
And I have gotten the sheet where it's I want to play, a tank. I want to play a fighter, damage dealer. I want to, and one of the answers on there most commonly is, I just want to play. I don't care. So there is room for everything. But again, if I want to play a more cerebral, or I want to play a game that's got more role playing than fighting in it, then somebody who wants to do nothing but deal damage might not be as happy playing that game. But the next campaign I put together might be, a more combat tactical, style game. I do actually personally try and mix a little bit of all of it because I enjoy all of it. I enjoy different aspects of all of it. Whether it be the miniature tactician, miniature tactical side of it, which really, takes me back to my old Warhammer 40k days and stuff, to the, the role-playing aspect of it with, being able to get out my improv chops going, so... Alright. I'm going to grab it out. Yeah, stick something in your mouth, Haven, while you're trying to talk. That's really smart. That's a good way of doing that. Let me grab my thingy here. I'm going to look at my other computer, by the way. So I have another laptop because I'm that guy. Mm-hmm. It's also so I could watch chat myself as you guys are doing this and reread stuff. Let's see. Where is the Game In with Haven? Game In with Haven. Game In with Haven thingy. Here we go. Da-da-da. I have a lot of files saved in my D&D folder. I should probably sort these out a bit better. Okay, there's a search function. I should probably use it. Well, that's all the responses. Where's the actual form?
So there's a comment that's really interesting, probably helps a lot with getting things figured out with planning games. Oh yeah, as the wife of the DM who has to watch him try to get all this together, trust me, he is a spreadsheet man and it makes things so much easier, especially on my end, so I don't have to deal with him being frustrated.
Well, having the spreadsheet actually really helps.
Oh yeah.
Well, just in general. Will you...
And then there's a question, have you ever ran a horror game or one meant to fill the players with dread?
Yes. I have run a horror game many years ago.
I think it would be fun, around Halloween, to take a break from our standard campaign and do, a quick one-shot horror one, if you can get a bunch of us who are willing to do it. Yeah,
I mean, it depends, exactly what you mean by horror. So have I done one that's purely a horror game? It really depends on what you mean. I've played D&D that had more of a horror aspect to it and had more of that kind of stuff to it. I've also done ones that are completely Lovecraftian, which definitely had a bit more horror to them than your average D&D game. It's not my thing, but I do enjoy a good suspense. I wouldn't be opposed to it. I've definitely run ones that had a bit... I've run chapters of games that had a bit more horror to them. Probably it doesn't really answer your question, though. I probably just I totally politicianed all the way around that.
I believe what he's trying to say is that you've never actually DM'd a horror campaign yet because it's not really your style of campaign.
No. Yeah, that's exactly it. I really haven't.
However, I do feel like you could.
I could.
If you had the right mix of players who really were involved with it and really want to do it.
Yeah.
I think that would be the biggest thing, because I agree. Horror games are really fun and tough, though, with players who just want to muck about.
Yeah, it really would be a serious campaign.
You really have to have a good mix of players who all enjoy horror, who really want the scare tactic of the game.
I would say this much. If I was going to do that, I would totally probably go Lovecraftian, because I love that mythos and I love all of that storyline. I would also have it be I would not really want to run that one on Zoom, because there's so much you lose. I love Zoom, don't get me wrong. I love being able to game now, especially with the pandemic going on. But I've noticed that comedic timing and suspense moments are lost with lag.
Yes.
with it. So I'd love to do this one in person, and I would totally prop the hell out of it. I would 3D print puzzle boxes and little things that probably don't even do anything but just look cool.
And you'd be able to play the suspense music that you can't really play when we're doing Zoom because you don't really pick it up.
Yeah, I mean, I can broadcast some sound effects across Zoom, but it doesn't come. It doesn't. Yeah, I'd want to dim.
Watch a horror movie in your living room versus a horror movie in a theater.
Yeah,
it's totally different.
I mean, I would want to be able to dim the lights and and do an actual like candles and everything, and totally run it that way.
Definitely.
So yeah, man, I'm not saying no, but. But would you want to run it D&D, or would you want to run a different system like Fate, or
whichever I think would work better. I mean,
or even Cyberpunk, like a Cyberpunk horror game would be kind of cool. I love Cyberpunk. I never get to play it.
Did you see that Gwyd's starting up a Call of Cthulhu campaign?
Yes, I did.
Yep,
Jelly.
Yeah.
Although I don't know about the system, I'd have to read up more on it. I know that it's gotten. I mean, I know people who've run it and they love it.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know if it'd be my cup of tea. And I can see Gwyd doing a really good suspense horror kind of show.
Yeah, Brennan just got Sandy Peterson's Cthulhu Mythos for 5e.
Nice.
Yeah. And then you got a comment of, I miss Cyberpunk, was always a rigger.
You're always a rigger? I was always a fixer. I love the fact that I could just say,
51.
I just love the fact that I could just go, I want to know somebody who has a tank. And then you just roll for it, and if the roll's high enough, sure enough, I know somebody who knows somebody who's got a tank, and then we've got a tank. I loved being able to do that kind of stuff. And I loved stretching it because the time when I played this, I was a teenager, but the DM we had was an older guy from University of Michigan. God, I can't remember his name. I'm blanking now. Anyway, he was really good, but he's like, look, I'm not good at doing this whole making up NPCs on the fly. So basically what he said is that if I rolled well and I needed to do it, I just had to create it myself. Like, he would say, yeah, you know somebody who has a tank. And I'd be like, in character then, it was like, so, we want a tank? This is what's going to happen. We're going to have to go down to Johnny's, and I'm going to need at least a 6-pack of beer and a live turtle, because that's the way we're going to get into Johnny's, because we got to go talk to Mikey the Squid, because he's got a brother who works at the armory. And then we just suddenly, there's like 3 new NPCs being made up, and the DM would roll with it, and it'd be like, all right, so you show up, and you got to bribe your way into this bar with a 6-pack and a turtle. And he loved it. He loved it. The players always loved it. It was always a lot of fun.
I think I would have fun playing that.
I loved Cyberpunk. And actually, so funny as it is, I almost swore there. And notice I put the mature thing on there so I can get away with it sometimes.
Why
I'm gonna say,
turtle?
why a turtle? Because it'd be like the first thing I thought of. Okay, I just made that up off the top of my head.
You're also a teenager.
I was a teenager, so I just randomly... Actually, I'll admit it was usually a lot worse when I was a teenager. I was a horny teenager. I will totally admit it. So it was like, yep.
That's changed now that you're an adult. How?
I'm not a teenager anymore. But...
You got that right.
So they... No, usually it was the fact that I needed to bribe my way in. Okay, I really loved... I played my fixer. I played a fixer like Face from the A-Team. Okay,
our
that's
friends know you.
all right, Kate, did you ever play Cyber Generation, the sequel to Cyberpunk 2020? Which, by the way, we should be cyberpunking right now. Like, why can't we just hack into a system with the wire? Anyway, sorry. Did you ever play Cyber Gen?
I miss playing Serenity.
Love Serenity.
That's what got me into playing this kind of stuff.
Yep.
Was when we got that, because it was a subject matter and a topic that I enjoyed.
And you felt like everybody was on the same wavelength.
Yeah. I mean, Serenity was awesome.
Yeah, Serenity was a great game.
And then we loaned our book out to somebody, and they never got it back, and now we can't get it anymore.
Yes, we can. Remember, I ordered one from Germany.
Oh, that's right. You did get it.
Yep. So
it still pisses me off because I know the friend that fucking has it.
Yeah, I know. And they lost it somewhere.
And they swear I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, now I don't
I
loan
think
out
I
those
maybe
books.
did CyberGen a few times. Lived in a house of nothing but PNP gamers.
Gotcha.
Shiny! Yes, shiny.
I loved CyberGen because I was playing that as a teenager, and so the fact that it was based on teenagers going through basically, well, to use the Marvel term, like Terrigenesis, by the nanobite virus and transforming yourself into something. I loved that extra aspect of it, being able to do it. So I would totally, in that one, I would totally actually play. Gosh, I'm blanking on the classes and stuff, but I'd always do the one that was like the Terminator person, where they can morph their arms into like blades and stuff, and then and eventually like make a potato gun out of your arms and guns and stuff. I loved that. I thought that was so cool.
You don't have any of your old cyberpunk stuff or anything like that anymore, do you? I don't see it over there.
Let's see.
Do you have it?
Cyberpunk,
Oh, you do
Generation.
have it. Okay, you do
Yep.
have it still.
Yep.
Sorry, I couldn't read it from over there.
I will not get rid of that because you cannot get those books anymore.
Well, no.
Oh yeah.
Because I put all of the non-D&D over
Yep.
here.
But yeah, Cyberpunk was a lot of fun. I loved and I loved the idea of when we were just talking about Firefly. I loved the Serenity games and stuff like that. That was a great D20 system too.
It was fun. Like, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a good time. I would totally run another one of those games again. I definitely have to revamp myself on the rules. Like I'm good with the role playing. I'm good with the verse side of it.
It's been a few years since we played it.
I just have to revamp myself on the rules because that's the thing. As a DM, I try and actually help my players out. Like I always feel like I should know the rules a little bit better than the players, which also makes me really good at running one shots for newbies.
Yes, but even Matt Mercer, who's played forever and a day now, still looks through the book every once in a while to refresh his brain because there is so many bits of information that you got to remember at any given time.
So many spells, so many rules.
And if somebody hasn't pulled something out in a while, you're gonna go, okay, is that correct? Is it not correct?
How do we work the deck of many things again?
Right. I mean, there's that one spell that they pull out maybe one every 75 episodes in.
Yep.
Summon elemental.
Summon elemental, yes.
Says the child.
But yeah. So does anybody else have any more questions on homebrew? Because that was what I was really wanting to make sure I focused on with this tonight, was the fact that like how I create a homebrew campaign that makes sure the players are hooked into it. And I know that as something else that somebody once told me, like, how do you get players to actually be interested? Sometimes the players are just not going to be. Maybe they've had a bad day. Maybe they're just assholes. Maybe they're just, not in it, for whatever reason. You can try your best to try and keep them hooked in, and they just might not.
What does the dust of deliciousness do again?
Oh, well, that makes any human taste like pork.
Don't humans already taste like pork?
Yes, they do.
No, we taste like chicken. Everything tastes like chicken.
Everything tastes like chicken.
Right before bed, you close your
I
hair.
got pork.
Okay, then. Cool beans. Yes, are there any homebrew items you love that's not just a new flavor of damage? Utility items.
Oh yeah. I love utility items. One of my favorite ones actually did get some use at the end of the first chapter of our of the Wandering Few campaign. I gave them the ever popular Rock of Gravity.
Because he's a jackass.
It is a magical item, so when they finally threw it at a god, I let it do magical damage.
Sounds like the vial of mimic juice.
Vial of mimic juice. I like that one. Let's see. What other utility items have I given you guys?
Bag of holding.
Well, no, they were talking about homebrewed, created items that I've come up with. Oh, actually, so as funny as it sounds, a variation on it, the bag of holding that the Wandering Few has is a used bag of holding. And if you haven't used a used bag of holding before, this is a fun concept. So what is a bag of holding but a place where it goes to an extra dimensional plane? So in theirs, I already had the bag halfway filled when they picked it up. They just don't know what's in it. So anytime they exceed the amount by shoving something else into it, random crap flies out. They've had rotten meat. They've had random swords. And then on top of that, I came up with a random table. So if they reach their hand in, there's a certain amount of percentage. If they say, I want a dagger of venom, they got to be specific in what they're reaching in for. But then there's a chance that whatever they reach in for might actually be in the bag because of whoever 100 years ago put it in there. Yeah, no, used bag of holding. I know it's not necessarily a whole new item, but I think it's a lot of fun.
Is the spell wand your best one?
The spell wand?
The one that you load the spells onto?
Oh,
Or is that
the wand of spell storing or the ring of spell storing? No, that was pre-made. I would say, let's see, what other ones haven't I done? That's not right. That's light cinnamon. I didn't want light cinnamon.
it's feature?
Copper. That's what I'm looking for. Utility homebrew items that I've made. Man, you know what? I feel like I'm really bad by blanking on this because I've just been sitting here talking and I can't really think of any of the other ones I've come up with that I gave you guys. The deck of
Wand of Wonder? Question mark.
Yeah, I've given them a Wand of Wonder.
You gave the bard a wand of
Yeah, the bard had a Wand of Wonder actually in the Horde of Dragon Queen game. They really enjoyed that one, especially when they did damage to a knoll by shooting it with gemstones.
And then collecting the gemstones.
And then proceeded to try and find all the gemstones afterwards because gemstones.
That's a good 1,000 gold.
Yeah, it was 1,000 gold worth of various semi-precious gemstones that pelted a knoll with it. No, I really can't think of any of the utility items I've come up with that I can tell you about. I do know of at least 2 of them that we came up with that I can't talk about right now because they're in the game right now, or will be found in the game that we're playing. But I'm always up for some more, though. I love the idea of random magical items that could be used. One of my favorite ones is actually, what was it? The rod. What's the rod that doesn't move when you use it? Shoot, I'm blanking on it. The immovable rod. I love watching people use the immovable rod in cool and interesting ways. The fact that you could basically, if you have 2 of them, you could climb the air. I've always thought to be a cool concept. So there you go. Unfortunately, I really can't think of any. I do like giving other abilities though on top of damage to help out. The raven-headed daggers that Remy now has the ability to steal memories because ravens, and it allows her not only when she does damage, but she then gets to the target is rolling a save, a wisdom save, right? Yeah, wisdom save. And if they fail the wisdom save, she's allowed to kind of use like the monk claim aspects and let her ask like one thing. And what it does is it gives her a memory, and she can from that memory usually figure out whether or not it's a vulnerability or an advantage or something like that.
On each successful hit, the target must make a wisdom saving throw of DC 15. On a fail, the wielder gets a glimpse into a fearful memory of the target. One of the following at DM's discretion that the wielder doesn't already know. Damage vulnerabilities, damage resistances, damage immunities, and condition immunities. So it's really nice when we're fighting something we're not familiar with.
Yep.
I can get some background on that little bad boy.
To me, this was a change, like I said, from the monk's pull aspects thing.
Oh, and their daggers are returning, so they come back to me after I throw them too.
Because I always thought that was a really cool ability. So it is combat related, but I'm hoping that at some point that same kind of thing is going to come out where we might be able to use it in a non-combat situation. You know, stab a guy or slice him on the way past, and then possibly pick up a memory, or something else that's going on.
Yeah.
You know, there are other ways that you can do it. I'm all for those kind of spells or those kind of items being used in non-combat fashion.
Mm-hmm. I love them. They're becoming my new favorite weapon.
Yep. I was hoping so. I kind of designed them specifically for Remy. And that's the other thing when it comes to the homebrew stuff. Like, I specifically have made these weapons I've made specific weapons, specific homebrew weapons in this one, for each character. Now that I know the characters, I've created weapons and created items specifically for them.
Well, it says here, interrogations would be really useful with that too.
Exactly.
Unless we accidentally kill her beforehand.
Playing a rogue. Interrogations tend to be fun.
Yep. And yes, this party has interrogated at least one person. I am not loving this. I love the idea of the copper on this, but I think it's blending in with the wood way too much.
No. If you're seeing it through this camera lens, the light's really popping it really nicely.
Okay.
What do you think, Ben?
I think it looks good.
Because I'm going through and I'm...
Silver.
Well, I could always like dry brush some silver over the top, or maybe go over this brass where the...
Make it look a little more tarnished.
Yeah.
Tarnished.
Like some green.
Yep.
Well, it's got all these like rivet holes. I could always go through the rivets and like pop the rivets as silver.
Yeah, I think that would look really cool.
There's a difference.
Well, you gotta look really good from here.
You can always make it look
Matt says he likes the copper.
Okay, well then we'll keep going with the copper.
You can always make it look a little iodized.
That's what I was thinking about. Yeah.
We can do some ionization maybe.
I need to warm you up, child.
Yeah, it is a little cold down in our basement right now.
Well, no, she's shivering.
You can not see how bad I'm trying.
No, I'm kind of paying attention to the model I'm painting.
How much time do you want to spend on it?
On this thing? Well, the funny thing is that as an update for the Wandering Few has officially found out that the Horde and armies of the undead are reaching the city, the Imperial City, are within sight of the Imperial City is exactly how I think I phrased it. So I didn't give them an exact time frame, but the siege of the Imperial City is imminent, and they are making their way back. This model will be taking part in that siege, as it is an undead siege engine. So if I don't get it, obviously I don't think I'm going to get it done by the end of this stream in the next like 20 to 30 minutes. I will probably have to finish painting it before the next session. Before the next stream, I'm sure I have to have it finished. So, unfortunately, whatever I finish it, I might have to finish off stream. So I've got a little bit of time, but not a lot. Does that make sense? I think that makes sense. I could also just be talking out my butt.
We're used to that.
Yep.
We do that sometimes, yeah.
So my goal was basically get all the primer colors on here, do a whole bunch of washes in black just to darken everything up, and then go back and dry brush on to get the highlights out of it once it's all said and done.
I'm sorry, I tremble a little. I don't know why. Slight anxiety tremble. Something called tremble. No matter what I do, I just tremble. Happy, tremble.
So no edge highlighting all the copper.
Yep, just all the copper, and I have to admit, when it comes to some of these big models like this,
Silvering every rivet.
Yeah. Maybe not. And this is the thing, like the nice thing is that I want to get it done enough that it looks decent on the table. But then to be honest, like once it's done, I can always come back and throw extra, paint on it after it's done.
Okay, Matt, as an artist, you understand. Perfection never happens. There's always something you look at and go, that could be better, that could be better, that could be better. It's never 100%.
Yeah, I at this point I've really come to the point where I make things look good at 3 feet, especially some of the monsters and especially the terrain. If it looks good at 3 feet, then it's good enough for the game table at this point, because half my players aren't even at the table, and so it's going to look good at 3 feet on a camera broadcast to Scotland.
We are always our own worst critics.
By
far.
And most of my players really don't care. Hell, they didn't even realize the fact that until I pointed it out to them.
Mismatched tiles?
Though the mismatched tiles, or this most recent one. Now, unfortunately, I didn't get the chance to put this mini actually into the game because they actually did a really good job of getting out of the trap I set for them with Snake Men.
Because we're smart.
But I printed out this guy. Which here, let me switch over so we got a big view. I'm going to go back up to just me. There we go. So I printed out this guy, right? So nice part is this is actually a Kickstarter that just came out for Sky Islands that I backed. And when you backed it, you got on the free models. And this Corsair was one of the free models they gave. Now, what at this range and on cameras, you don't, see much. Or maybe you do. If you look right here, this model did not print right. And it actually, I had some layer shifting, which I'm still fighting with, and it's been a pain in my butt. I think it actually has to do with the slicer settings I'm using, but I'm about to start speaking Spanish to people who don't pay attention to 3D printing. So there's some bad layer heights here. I threw this down on the table at the end of the game saying, just so you know, this is what it looked like when it came in and tried to save you guys. And everybody went, ooh, ah, and nobody cared. They thought it was cool. Now, I am a slight perfectionist, so... I don't know, slight. I have printed out another one of the tops without the layer shifting in it so that I can paint it up to match. Honestly, and be good with it.
I think the layer shifting actually made it look better because, let's face it, it's out in the desert. It's going to be a little busted up a little bit.
If it had been like a gouge or something, I'd agree with you, but the fact that I can see the whole thing is all shifted and like some of the pipes don't line up now. That's where
people who say it looks really cool.
I love it. I think it's really cool. And then they just released the second model that's free from that Kickstarter, which is actually a floating island with a light on top of it, like a street light. So it's a street light on its own little floating island held by a chain. I don't know if I have a use for that guy yet. I almost, depending on when this actually hits, I almost kind of want to use it and make a Sky City. So
Haven, slight perfectionist. Slight, ha, and I agree with Cal. The layers look interesting. Ha ha ha.
All right. Well, the layers look interesting. Haven is outvoted yet again.
I love when I see my name and people agreeing with me.
Yeah. I agree with you a lot of the time too. So, I mean,
not when it comes to your perfectionist.
Yeah.
Things. I tell you it looks great, and you're like, no, I can see this, and I can see that, and you can see that.
Well, and that's, I guess, especially when it comes to this part of it, and I totally agree with wanting to be a perfectionist, but at least I've come to grips with the fact that it just needs to look good at 3 feet. Oh, I'm back to painting. I didn't switch it, so hold on. There we go.
Smart man. Yes, Matt, he is a smart man. That's why we've been together almost 20 years now.
But I would say that, like, if it looks good at 3 feet, it's going to look good on camera. And my players are not going to care. They're there to play the game. The fact that I even put this much effort and energy into the planning of it,
yes,
is usually what I'm hoping they take away from it.
I feel right now that I could talk for every single player who's ever sat around our table for the 2 different campaigns that you ever put out that I've played. We love the fact that you put the time and energy into creating the maps, creating the characters. Painting the models to be able to have up there. It's not totally we're pulling everything out of our own brains and having to think of it on our own. You're giving us those ideas. Being able to look at the model that's coming out at us and have the whole table go, ooh! You see the panic across all of our faces. You wouldn't get that if we all had to use our own imagination.
Yeah, but I also don't want to discount the fact that there are some really great times can be had by doing theater of the mind.
Oh, yes, and we've had some amazing times. We've had amazing sessions where it was completely theater of the mind because what we were doing in the campaign didn't require you to have a map or didn't require you to have models.
The chasing down the 12-year-old monk girl through the castle, you guys have told me was one of your favorite encounters. And that was all theater of the mind, and it was all just a bunch of it was all a bunch of ability checks. Dodge the cart she threw down the stairs. Dodge the old people she knocked over. She threw a spell behind her, or not a spell. You threw a spell at her. She then had to dodge. It was, it was awesome. It was cool, and you guys, everybody has said that it was one of their favorite moments in the campaign so far.
Oh yeah.
Was chasing Lauren down.
Mm-hmm.
So,
chucking daggers at her ankles and whatnot. Yeah, it was a blast. But no, we love the fact that you put that much effort in.
Yeah,
and again, to go back to, Critical Role and Matt Mercer, there are times where he is, pulling random stupid little things onto the table because he wasn't prepared.
Yep. Part of it...
I don't have the eagle model, so we're going to pull this model out,
Yep. I don't have a Tyrannosaurus or a T... Or no, it was a Triceratops that Scanlan turned into at one point. I don't have a Triceratops model. Yeah. And then for me, it's always... I love at least giving the visual representation. And for me, this also, like I said, it is feeding the bit of the fact that I used to play a lot of tabletop strategy games and army games. I played a lot of Warhammer 40k, a lot of Warhammer Fantasy, Necromunda, Moorholden. I loved all of those games. I just didn't like the company's policy of constantly re-releasing models and changing the rules to well, and I get it, they're trying to make more money, but I feel like they could have done a better job at it and not... They lost a lot. They always would lose a lot of players who couldn't afford to keep up when it came to tournament play and it came to buying all their new stuff. So that's what drove me away from that hobby. I've heard they've kind of changed their ways a little bit, and so I'm tempted to, at some point, someday, probably when I retire, maybe look back at it. But for right now, D&D is definitely giving me that same tactical feel at times by doing the minis and doing the maps and doing the encounters the way that I've been designing them and trying to give them elevation and give you guys, more than just...
Well, and once COVID's all said and done, hopefully, and we can get back to actually hanging out with people and whatnot, we do have a friend who does a lot of, Warhammer stuff that you could easily go hang out with and get that fix without having to spend an arm and a leg.
Yep. Actually, we've got a few. We've had like 3 or 4 friends of ours who've invited us to come down and play games when we just have never been able to make the timing line up is best the best way to look at it. But yeah, this is at least feeding that itch for me. And especially being able to 3D print some of the models. Being able to print an entire mob of lizard men, to actually be able to put out a village of lizard men for you guys to fight. I wouldn't be able to do that without the printers, to be brutally honest.
Well, Matt says he thinks, Game Sweatshop kind of had to with 3D printing, putting pressure on the box game models.
Okay, this is before 3D printing was a thing. I got out of Game Sweatshop when they went from 2nd to 3rd edition of Warhammer 40k, and half of my models were no longer able to be used for my Imperial Guard army.
And Matt says you should come down and play Rune Wars with him after vaccinations.
I am all for this. Yeah, they... no, this was back before even 3D printing was a thing, and I do agree they had to up their game. Considering I can probably go on Thingiverse and find copies of every single model for Game Sweatshop that I can print out on a resin printer or an FDM. And just print my own armies at this point if I really, really wanted to. I'm not going to yet, but...
Game shops always had the promise of making the best bang.
Yeah, it was just the fact that the rules changes would always come across, and now suddenly I can't use, a $50 model that I paid and painted and put all the work into. It's like, what the heck?
Well, Matt said they killed Lizardmen after Age of Sigmar and he got out then.
Nope. I can't remember the weapon it was, but when I was playing my orcs, there used to be a weapon that you could that let you teleport grunts or the little tiny snotlings inside of tanks and stuff. And when they got rid of that guy is really when I think I threw my... No, I remember now. I really got out of it when they took away my mobility from my Imperial Guard. I had an entire whatever the Sand Warriors were, completely mounted... all mounted units, all chimeras for everything, matching tanks for every unit, the whole 9 yards. And when they took away that whole thing is when I was like, nope, I'm done. And I ended up just getting rid of it and just getting out. Really bummed me out. Anyway, let's talk about T&D. All right, I think that really looks actually a lot better on the bone, especially. You guys can't see it, but yeah, I think that looks good. And I'm totally being sloppy again, by the way. Just remember, in case anybody's a perfectionist, I'm not, and I'm just totally going through here and just snagging out the things I want, and then I'm going to clean it up later because I know I'm going to put another layer probably of white over this whole thing. I just wanted to get the rest of the color palette on it, shall we say, and then go through. Because actually, what it's not going to be white. I'm actually going to use khaki, and try and give it a little bit of a yellowish look, so it actually looks like bone. Does that make sense? I don't know. There's so much I want to paint on this thing. I'm trying to be normal here. Actually, we want to talk about an old game that was killed by Wizards. Harrowscape. Anybody remember Harrowscape? I loved Harrowscape. I had so much Harrowscape, and then somebody broke into my house and stole it all. Not joking. We were moving into the apartments a while back. Somebody stole it all. It's killing you, isn't it? No, it's not killing me. Although I think we're now getting close to the wrap-up point of me doing this. I try and keep my streams to between an hour and a half to 2 hours, because one, my gracious, lovely wife, and two, I know I really can't keep you guys entertained for that long. I think I will at least, make sure that we cover the fun parts and the cliffhanger that I left going last time about why Haven was in a sewer beneath churches in Kalamazoo. If you guys are still interested. Yeah, no, the khaki I think will make a really good balance. Because bone really isn't pure white. Bone has definitely got those yellow tinges to it, especially if it's aged bone. And I was definitely thinking, like, if you were building an undead war machine out of old bones, then you're just going to grab bones you have laying around and kind of stitch them together, which is what this thing kind of looks like to me. You know what? I am not going to pay too much attention to the very bottom base here. I think I'm the underside, because I don't think this thing's going to get shown, picked up, and moved around. Does that make sense to everybody? Cool. All right. Never mind. Okay. So why was Haven in sewers? So there is a place called Arcadia Creek here in Kalamazoo. Now, Arcadia Creek goes along originally what was Arcadia Street, and it was the main sewer and water runoff, or I should say street runoff. So we're not talking like sewer refuse from your toilet kind of sewer. We're talking the drain, like a drainage sewer used for water runoff from the roads and everything. Now, Arcadia Creek came up near goes all the way down Stadium and then past K College. And just after it gets past K College, it actually goes underground, or went underground through most of downtown Kalamazoo. And about 20 years ago, maybe less. Yeah, no, longer than that. Man, I'm old. About 30-ish years ago, they decided that they were going to open up Arcadia Creek through downtown. Any place where it wasn't going underneath the building, they were going to open it up and make it accessible. So the water, like they wanted to make this man-made river basically going through the middle of downtown Kalamazoo, since they already have it and it was underground. But in doing so, they were going to they were then going to rip up and damage all this, great architecture that was done, because a lot of this had like old churches and stuff that were on that this storm drain went under through Kalamazoo. These churches have all been gone for decades, and as well as some of the office buildings that have been. The storm drain went underneath them, and some of it had been torn down and now rebuilt or not. And a friend of ours a friend of the family was a historian of Kalamazoo and heard about this and got special permits to document that storm drain before they decided to actually fully rip it out. And so she asked if myself and one of my brothers wanted to go with her and help document this storm drain the Arcadia Creek storm drain before it was completely demolished and before they lost all this brickwork and stuff. And sure enough, when we got underneath there was all of this beautiful, beautiful brickwork in certain parts. Other parts were completely utilitarian concrete and everything. You could tell it was like they'd already demolished it when they built a new modern building over it, or had come in and repaired it. But there were still plenty of spots where we came across spots where there had obviously been some kind of church or prominent building that was there. And I say churches, and I say that because there were sections of it where we came across these crosses that were inlaid into the brick. And I mean, like, they actually had recessed, like the brick was set back, and then they actually brought the cross out and set the brick out a little bit to actually make this cross in the brickwork. And in the spots where there was extra raised or extra supports, there was inlays of large metal crosses into it, very ornate crosses that were set in the stones in a storm drain. Why would they? I don't understand why they made it decorative, but they did. They paid attention to a storm drain and made it pretty by how they laid all the bricks out. It was insane. But yeah, we went down there with waterproof video cameras and cameras and stuff, and took pictures of it all and documented it before it was all ripped up 30 odd years ago, which it is now actually completely gone. It is now all open, big concrete walls with sidewalks going beside it, and yeah, all that history, all that brickwork was all just demolished when they opened up the Arcadia Creek. It was but yeah, so that's why Haven at one point in time when he was about 10 years old found himself walking through the Arcadia storm drain, or Arcadia Creek. And we went, if you know Kalamazoo, we went into that storm drain at basically behind where the Dairy Queen is, there on Stadium. Okay, we went in there, and then we walked all the way to Kalamazoo River. That's where we popped out at, was at Kalamazoo River, where the Arcadia Creek actually empties out into the Kalamazoo River. So there's the story of why Haven was in a storm drain at 10 years old. And we found some really, not only did we find all the architecture, we found some of the best and worst of humanity down there too while we were at it. So it was pretty disgusting, actually. Baby strollers, we found like 7 baby strollers while we were down there. I can't remember anything else. The baby strollers always stood out to me, though. Oh, it was definitely a hike. And sometimes we were actually up to our armpits in water while we were walking down there, because it's not all flat. At least it was probably when it was built. But, gosh knows how long that had been. So, yeah, no, it was a hike. It was a lot of fun. And no, I don't know of anybody else who did it, before they demolished it, or, did it before. And it's an active storm drain, so it wasn't even like there was a homeless population living in it or anything, because, it was always had a river or a stream running through it. But yeah, there you go. I actually have been inside of sewers, so I can speak from experience when it comes to the fact that some sewers were actually pretty and were actually very, very beautifully done. I was shocked. She told me that, our friend, who I will protect her name to protect the not so innocent, that that was down there, that there'd be this beautiful architecture down there. I was like, no, well, it's a sewer. They wouldn't. No, they did. Back when we paid attention to that stuff, I think we don't do that enough anymore. Pay attention even to the small things. Where we get caught up in the details of things and make sure that it all looks really nice. As I'm painting a model and talking about trying not to be over protective of it, or perfectionist, perfectionist. That's what I'm trying to say. So there you go. There's that story. See, what other weird thing can I mention that I've done in my past to keep everybody on a hook? Oh, I can mention the one that I put on my friend Duckman's post. He made a post. He always does these poll things in the morning, trying to just keep everybody entertained or keep people engaged. And he asked, like, what's one thing that you've done that doesn't sound true, but totally is? And mine was, I have smeared split peas into famous authors' beards and laughed at them. And that's a totally true statement. I will leave you with that. Partially because I'm waiting for my mom to tell me who the author was, because I forgot. I know I did it. My mom's told me this story numerous times. Yeah, I think that's going to look okay. All right, votes on painting the eyes like a deep red, by the way. I'm tempted to drop inside of these eye sockets.
Question mark.
Giant, like, paint the inside of the eye sockets and the nose socket bright red or even a dark red just to give it like an eerie glow. What do you guys think? Would that look good? Or should I leave it with the black, like that menacing black gaping holes of the skull? Oh yes, if you those of you who've even known me for a very long time, I've had a very interesting life, by the way. Being raised by family that did the same things that I currently do, at least to some extent, has led to some really great stories to have to tell. Actually, okay, so my friend Matt Brennan's listening, and he'll appreciate this. I was not necessarily raised the entire time doing Renaissance festivals. I got into Renaissance festivals when I was about 10 over at Holly. So the Michigan Renaissance Festival is where I started doing that when I was about 10. So I guess you could say I was somewhat raised doing it. But what I was really raised doing, like infant, was actually Society for Creative Anachronism, or the Society for Consenting Adults, or SCA, depending on how you want to look at it. I was raised doing that with my folks. They were really heavily into that, specifically in the Washtenaw County area. Now, we had just moved to Lansing, I want to say it was, and we had, my mom got a call after we had gone to an event, and I can't remember which one it was. It might have even been, like, the Valentine's Day Massacre, because...
which is going digital this weekend.
Oh, awesome. Because that's the only one I could think of that happened during the school year. But that I went to this big thing, and I went back to school, and I told my friends about it, and I remember telling the teacher about it. And the teacher then proceeded to call my parents and tell them that I had trouble distinguishing between reality and fantasy. My mom tried to explain to the teacher exactly what I was probably talking about and what we had done the weekend previous, and we also did a bunch of events in Detroit too. I remember that much, but so it could have been later. I might have the event wrong, but it doesn't matter for the story. So she gets this call and she tries to convince the teacher. And the teacher's not having it. And basically, the teacher blows my mom off and basically tells my mom she's crazy, for a lack of a better term. Very old teacher who was very stuck in her ways, kind of thing. And again, this is back in the early '80s, by the way. When like certain other things were going on that we won't talk about. So my mom, being who she is, immediately gets off the phone with the teacher, and feeling like she got the brush off, proceeds to then call the principal and have a nice long conversation with the principal about how she felt and the way the teacher was instructing her. And the principal, hearing my mom's story, immediately said, "This sounds awesome. Wait, you guys do living history?" is basically what he took away from it. And my mom said, "Yeah, we do this living history stuff." So the principal arranged at that point with my mom, and over the next next week or so, arranged for a bunch of the guys in armor to come down to my school. And by the time it all got done, at lunch, a bunch of the SCA people parked down the road, got fully in costume and garb, and with horses walked into my school. And my mom proceeded just to stare at the teacher the whole time as the principal introduced them, and they turned it into this big history day, and they talked about, and my uncle, who was part of it, I remember this one, which was a lot of fun. Full armor, mind you, was giving the rattan swords to the kids and letting them hit them. He was just down on his knees, in elementary school, mind you, and these kids are swinging these, two-handed, like taking a single-handed sword of rattan and just wailing on my uncle. Gosh, Taz loved it. But anyway, that's yeah. So that's how my mom handles that situation. I also learned from that experience, by the way, which is why whenever Christy or Kaylee would change schools, we'd have a talk with the teacher ahead of time and go, by the way, we work these festivals, and so if the kid comes in and tells you that she had like tea with the fairy queen, or was at a coronation, or watched somebody get knighted, this is what she means, by the way. And luckily, almost every teacher we ever did this to immediately latched onto this, like, that is so cool, and that's really awesome, and they just want to talk about it, which usually left the kid going, I don't like my teacher liking you. And they'd ask all sullen. Kaylee, specifically. Christy, not so much, but Kaylee definitely did not want us talking to her teachers about the Ren fairs. I think she was afraid the teacher was going to bring it up in class and embarrass her. Mm-hmm. But I at least always gave them a fair warning, because I did not want the same situation to happen to me.
Yeah, we've had to have that talk with Things 2's teachers before.
Yep. It's a good conversation to have. The other one, at the same time, when I was doing a lot of SCA events, I was also traveling around to a lot of sci-fi conventions all over the country, specifically like Dragon Con and Conclave and Media West Con and World Con, and you get the idea. And I was seeing really weird things. Like, I think one of my favorite photos, by the way, is there's a photo, or one of my favorite times I remember was at a Marcon, where I got to see a Scottish Klingon wedding. That was a good time. Same weekend, got to watch a bride and groom who showed up at the same hotel that Marcon was being held at. They'd actually reserved the honeymoon suite, and they proceeded to have their honeymoon surrounded by a bunch of sci-fi fans. And here's this bride, full gown, walking through past Klingons and aliens and the Psycorps from Babylon 5 and they got checked in, and then I think they made it maybe halfway up to the room, because I was at the bar on 2 watching this all go down, and we're all laughing about it. And I don't think they made it to the room, because they got in the elevator doors closed, and then like maybe 10 minutes later they were back down, still in their tux and still her bridal gown, start taking pictures with everybody. Like, they dropped their suitcases off in the room and then came back down and started hanging out with everybody and getting photos taken with all the people in costume. So that bride has got pictures in her full bridal gown standing next to like 7 Klingons. Oh man, she was in that. They were in for a treat that they didn't even know they were getting. Yeah. So there you go. Haven's had an interesting life. Let's just put it that way. I probably could actually talk more about that kind of stuff, and I don't know if you guys would ever actually be interested in that, but being raised by families who actually did SCA events and sci-fi conventions, and actually worked sci-fi conventions, so we, met a lot of people. I definitely have a few stories to tell, at least when it comes to that. So... all right. Well, we are getting towards that time, I think, actually, where I'm going to probably say that it's time to log off. I have used up my dedicated streaming time. So if anybody who watches this, especially after I put it up on YouTube even, feel free to make it in the comments. Let me know what we should do with the eyes. I'll hold off, and I can always paint them up later. I'm really torn. Leaving them black or painting them red. What do you think? Which way should we go? And we will let that kind of be a group decision here, and we will call it good. What do you think, hon? Are we good for time? Should we wrap up at this point? All right. I wish I'd gotten a little more done. I think partially I got a lot done. Before we only got all the white done, but I did do 2 coats of the full white on everything, so I'm not too stressed out by that. I didn't get to the red doing the wash, but I was pretty sure I wouldn't anyway. But there we go. We'll switch over to the other view so that you guys can get a better one, since this camera does a bit better. I think he's coming out pretty well. One of the things that Christy just noticed, by the way, is actually that this actually moves. I don't know if you guys have all seen that when it's going and when I've had it. I need to do a bit more trimming up.
Unfortunately, right now it does not look. You're lucky you have an adult rated. Let's just leave it at that. You're lucky you're adult rated.
So that's still pretty cool. The only other thing I would say I wanted to show off was actually the snake people that we used last time. There we go. So these are the snake guys that I printed off last time for this current campaign. These are from Fat Dragon Games, and he actually just calls them Snake Warriors. I used whatever the Snake Warriors were for D&D, Yutaka Toy or whatever, and I made them. Just chose the third version, so it had a human torso. Supposed to have a human head, but I don't care. I think the Viper head actually looks kind of cool. And there's 3 different ones: one with a bow, one with a spear, and then there's another one with a sword. I tried to give him a look like a Sand Viper, since they were going to be out in the desert, and these guys actually ambushed the party along with a demon that these guys worship. They fought them all off for a while, but they were just the bait to lure them into the trap in the center, and then have 50 of them swarm down. By the way, just a point of order: if you ever want to actually keep your party trapped, don't give them a flying carpet. Just FYI.
I like our flying carpet.
It has made things interesting to have to track for making changes there. Or make sure that it's always a low cavern. That really cuts the flying down too. But
especially since the model that I bought for it cost me like a whole $6 on Amazon.
Yeah. Well, if you guys haven't seen this yet, I know some of my role-playing groups have actually seen it. Though this is our flying carpet. This is actually... What was it? It was a dollhouse carpet that you found?
Yeah, dollhouse area rug. I looked up miniature area rug or whatever. I don't remember I looked up a couple different things and was able to find that, and it didn't cost me hardly anything.
Yeah. So we have a flying carpet, and so when we do our games, I also have. So this is the combat tiers from Pecco, and then. They have their flying carpet, and then
And there's also a comment of nor boots of flight or flying brooms either.
And then they get to sit up there on top.
That screws you too.
So this is how my party flies around on their flying carpet. With Remy. So I don't mind it actually. I may complain about it, but it makes me think like a DM. At this point, we also have a druid that has actually hit a high enough level that she can fly. So I've also been picking up things for her to use. I haven't fully painted this guy yet, but I picked up a giant eagle because she now officially can turn into a giant eagle. Why not? So, yeah. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to Haven's Paint and Chat, where we've been painting the Fat Dragon Deathwalker. I am not a good painter. I just love to do it. And I'm trying to prove that you don't necessarily have to be good at something to enjoy doing it. So the... eagles are coming. Huh. Okay. Druid picked up the rogue and proceeded to turn rogue like a turret with her bow and arrow from 40 feet in the air. That was what happened in the last game. Unfortunately, that was because it was my idea, and I was running the druid because the druid left. But that's the side point. Anyway, thank you again so much for coming, guys. Thank you for watching my little stream here, Paint and Chat, talking about D&D and homebrewing. If you have any more questions about homebrewing and how I create my campaigns or anything like that, feel free. I will not give away too much tips on my current campaign, but I'm all for it. If you would like to build on this idea of this evil bad guy who's going to have a coup to bring back the emperor, an empire back to a newly funded or newly founded democracy, throw the comments in the bottom. Tell us know what you think about it. I'm more than happy to continue this idea of building this. Maybe we'll even continue on to it. Maybe we'll add into it and maybe figure out how we'd start. That's what we'll do. Next time we're going to talk about how we can do starts. Like, let's not have everybody meet in a tavern. There are plenty of other ways that you can do this. Let's find some other ways that we would start this campaign to gather these adventurers together to go forth. With that, though, again, I've been Haven the Hare. My wife, Kala, has been the one helping moderate and piping in occasionally. You know what? It's not said enough. So I love you all. Thank you for tuning in, and may you make all of life's saving throws.